Once upon a time, in the picturesque and tranquil landscape of a small village nestled in the mountains of Tibet, there lived a young man named Tenzin. He was known throughout the village for his kindness and compassion, always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need. Yet, despite his virtues, Tenzin had a unique challenge that set him apart from the rest of the villagers. He was exceptionally sensitive and emotional. Tenzin's emotions had a way of controlling him. He would often become deeply upset over even the smallest of things, and his happiness or sorrow depended on the whims of his ever-shifting emotional state. This constant emotional roller coaster led him to seek a path towards stability and inner peace. One fateful day, Tenzin made a decision that would change the course of his life. He decided to visit a nearby Buddhist monastery, perched atop a hill overlooking the village. The monastery was renowned for its wise and enlightened monks, and Tenzin believed they could offer him the guidance he so desperately sought. Upon reaching the monastery, Tenzin was greeted by the soothing chants of the monks and the fragrance of incense wafting through the air. The peaceful ambience reassured him that he was in the right place. Tenzin approached the head monk, a venerable figure known for his wisdom and compassion. With humility and sincerity in his eyes, he told the monk about his inner turmoil and asked for guidance on how to become more emotionally stable. The monk, who had seen many seekers like Tenzin before, nodded with understanding and invited him to sit. With a gentle smile, he began to share a story that had been passed down through generations, a tale of profound wisdom. The monk told Tenzin about a young woman who had suffered a great loss. Her beloved husband had passed away. She was consumed by grief and could not find solace. Desperate to find a way to overcome her sorrow, she decided to seek the counsel of the Buddha, the Enlightened One. Upon reaching the Buddha, the grieving woman fell at his feet, tears streaming down her face. She implored, "O Buddha, I am drowning in sorrow. Please show me a way to end my suffering." The Buddha, with great compassion, agreed to help her. He told her to go to every house in the village and ask for a mustard seed from a family that had never experienced death. He assured her that once she found such a seed, her sorrow would be alleviated. The woman, hopeful and determined, embarked on her quest. She went from house to house, knocking on doors, and in each home she asked for a mustard seed from a family untouched by death. But as she heard the stories of each household, her hope began to wane. In every house she found mustard seeds aplenty, but in each she also heard tales of grief, loss, and suffering. In one home a father had lost his son, while in another a mother mourned her daughter. The woman realized that death was an inevitable and natural part of life, and everyone had experienced it in some form or another. With a heavy heart, she returned to the Buddha and admitted her failure. She said, "I could not find a single house untouched by death. I now understand that suffering and loss are universal, and I am not alone in my grief." The Buddha, in his wisdom, smiled and said, "You have learned a valuable lesson, my child. Suffering and loss are an integral part of the human experience. By acknowledging this truth, you have taken the first step towards healing and enlightenment." The monk concluded the story and turned his gaze towards Tenzin, who was listening with rapt attention. "Tenzin," the monk said, "the key to becoming emotionless is not to suppress or deny your emotions, but to accept them as a natural part of life. Just as the woman learned to accept the universality of suffering, you too must come to terms with your emotions. They are not your enemy. They are a part of you, a part of the human experience." The monk continued to impart his wisdom to Tenzin. He taught him meditation techniques that would help him observe his thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. Meditation, he explained, was a way to create a space between one's thoughts and reactions, allowing for a deeper understanding of the self. Tenzin, eager to find the peace and stability he so desperately sought, embraced these teachings wholeheartedly. He committed himself to daily meditation, sitting in solitude and observing his thoughts and emotions as they rose and fell like waves in the vast ocean of his mind. Over time, he became more emotionally stable, less prone to be swayed by the turbulence of his feelings. With each passing day, Tenzin found himself gradually transformed. He learned to accept his emotions without allowing them to control him. He discovered that by acknowledging his feelings and observing them non-judgmentally, he gained greater mastery over them. This newfound emotional stability allowed him to respond to life's challenges with equanimity, rather than being tossed about by his own reactions. As Tenzin deepened his practice, he experienced a profound shift in his perception of the world and the people around him. He became more compassionate and understanding towards others, recognizing that they too were grappling with their own emotional turmoil. With empathy in his heart, he was able to offer a listening ear and a comforting presence to those who sought solace in his company. Years passed, and Tenzin's reputation as a wise and compassionate soul grew. People from the village and neighboring areas sought his guidance in times of emotional distress. He became a pillar of support for those struggling with their own turbulent emotions, helping them navigate the storms of life. Tenzin's journey had come full circle, and he realized that the path to becoming emotionless, as taught by the monk, was not about numbing oneself to emotions, but about embracing them as part of the human experience. He had learned that true emotional mastery was the ability to recognize, understand, and respond to one's emotions with wisdom and grace. With a heart full of gratitude, Tenzin decided to visit the same monastery he had sought guidance from many years ago. The head monk, who had guided him on this transformative journey, was still residing there. Tenzin was excited to share his story and express his heartfelt thanks. The monk welcomed Tenzin with a warm smile. "Tenzin," he said, "you have come a long way on your path to emotional mastery. Your heart is now like the lotus flower, which grows in muddy water but remains pure and beautiful. Your emotions, like the mud, no longer cloud your true essence. You have learned to rise above them and remain pure, just as the lotus blooms untainted by the muck from which it emerges." Tenzin bowed to the monk in gratitude and shared his experiences and the profound transformation that had occurred in his life. The monk listened with great pleasure, for nothing brought him more joy than witnessing a seeker who had truly internalized the teachings of the Buddha. From that day on, Tenzin continued to deepen his meditation practice and spread the teachings of Buddhism to others who were struggling with their emotions. He became a wise and compassionate teacher, offering guidance to those seeking peace and happiness in their lives.